Welcome back. So in our previous video we discussed shapes and how to create them, how we can deform and resize and adjust their shape in order to create a design. So that forms a very important part of our creative process. Now we want to look further into more shapes and how to create them and deform them, and very important to mention how those nodes that help us to change the shapes function in various different shapes. But before we start creating the shapes, I just want to mention something that Inkscape does, which is quite helpful, but sometimes it can be a bit distracting when you are doing some work. And that's that when you create any shape, the tool remembers the last actions you took. In other words, if you made a triangle the last time, when you want to draw another shape, you're most likely going to see another triangle, which you will now have to change or actively deselect and select the correct shape you want to create. So I'm going to show you an example. I'll click a box. So if I click on the page and create a shape, I want to grab it from that node and I want to make it rounded off like this and click off. There we have our shape. So if I want to make another square next to that one, it will also have a rounded corner like that. So this means if I want it with sharp corners, I will have to actively go select that and move it all the way back in order to get that effect. And now let me go to another shape and let's see how we can create these and deform them. Let me see how we can create these shapes and work with them. So I clicked on this shape tool, and if you look at the top of the page, you will see there's a star, and next to it is a pentagon. Now let's start with the star. As usual, you click and you drag. Now you notice that this is not the star that we have up there, and this is exactly for the very reason that the last time I created the shape here, this was the shape I created. So for you to make this into a star, all we have to do is to select it, and we want to go up there. You notice here it has the number of corners, it says 14, so we just input the 5, and here we have a star. And what if we want to, let me just give it a brighter color so we can see it clearly. Let's have an orange star, the black stroke. Now what if I want to modify the shape of this star? We simply click a second time and we can twist it and skew it as we did before, or that way and that way. I will just undo those, or we double click to get our deformation nodes, and here we can grab it this way and make longer the arms, and whatever I do here, it affects all 5 arms of the star, as you will have noticed. So if I go back all the way in, it goes back in the other direction, and I can pull it out again and come back out, and so on and so forth. Now the same applies to when this part is being manipulated, just like the outer one. It moves in and out, and it can go all the way the other way. I can go skew, I can go that way. You notice how the shape keeps changing. So there is a sense of symmetry in the manner in which all 5 arms of the star is being transformed. It maintains the same pattern all over. So you can go back in and you can go on and twist it as well. You can make all forms of shapes. So you can just play around, and there is no end to what you could do with these shapes. So that's what we can do with the star. So we can increase all the arms, make it more, or reduce it. If we want to reduce it, there we have 4, and there we have 3. That's a triangle, and so on and so forth. Now let's look at another shape. So I'll leave it as a star with 5 hands. So I'm going to select the shape next to the star, the pentagon. Yes, the moment I click on it, it transformed my star into this very shape. So I could do 2 things. Let me undo that. So if I wanted this to remain a star, so what I'll do is I'll go back and select the shape tool, and you can still see that there's still star in my icon. But when I go and click on that polygon shape, although there's still a star here, when I click and drag, here I have my polygon tool, my polygon shape. And like every other one, we can do all the things that we do. We can rotate, we can skew, and so on and so forth. Now let's see how, when I double click, how I'm able to deform this shape. So we select that, and we go that way and that way. So the node resizes, as opposed to the nodes here that resizes but also transforms the shape. And then that's the difference. You notice how this transforms the shape, but the node here simply resizes. It does not change the shape. It does not alter the form. It simply increases or decreases the size of the polygon. Now let's take a look at a circle, a very simple shape, a circle. So as usual, we're going to draw, click and drag, and there we go. Now I just want to put this aside. Let's move this in place. Let's move that up. I'll move you up so we can see our circle. Now when we click on the circle one more time, we can also create oval and pull it that way as we did the previous shapes. And when we double click, now I want you to pay attention to how these 2 nodes deform the shape. The first one, which is this one, is able to do the same warp, pull, and skew the shape just like this one can, sideways on the X and Y axis. I'm going to undo that. But this circle, the little dot here, it functions in 2 different ways to create a shape. If I click it and move anti-clockwise, it is going to form a Pac-Man shape, like a piece of pizza. Look at that. And I can go all the way. I wanted to notice where the cursor of the mouse is on this side, and it goes all the way around again. So you notice that I'm pulling this on the outer part of the circle. But if I were to move, let me stop here. If I move my cursor inward, you notice how it begins to change by creating a little diameter across the circle, and it goes all the way down. You see that? So when you're on the inside, it eats away the circle on one side, but when you're on the outside, it makes this little Pac-Man shape. So this is the deformation of the circle as it is. Now that done, let me show you how to use the spiral tool. Well, the spiral tool is a rarely used tool in my opinion, but this is something that you'll find useful in some designs. And as every other shape, when you double click, you can do the skew, you can change the shape sideways and rotate and all that. You can do the same. I will undo that. And when you double click, so here we have the node here. If you move it, you can change the length of the twirl, the distance, all the way back. You see that? And you can bring it back and adjust how tightly woven this whole twirl is, and you can keep going on and on. Or you can take on this one and unravel it, and so on. So you can just play around with it and you will see how it works. Now there is a tool here that most designers don't like, but I find it quite useful because it can help in certain types of creatives, and that is the eraser tool. I'm going to show you how to use it and how it changes these forms because they are vector files as opposed to raster images. So if I select this Pac-Man, then I'll go and select my eraser tool. Now if I draw across, it erases and seals the path as well. You see, it can go across, it removes a portion of it, but notice how it maintains the shape as a complete form. Let me just zoom in. I'll hit the plus sign here on my keyboard. Now when you look closely, you can zoom in as much as you want into these corners and it will remain ever crisp and clear. I want to show you this. Let's move it into space. Here we go. So these shapes are formed by these paths. Some mathematical calculation the algorithm uses to create these vector files. So the paths enclose the space that contains this orange color that we see here. So you can scale this as big as the universe. It will continue to be crisp and clear, unlike a vector image that will begin to pixelate when you zoom in. So let me just hit minus there on my keyboard and zoom out. So let me show you when you apply the same on this spiral. Right now it's a single line that moves around. Let me just move this away to show you what I mean. Great. Now when you select it like that and hit the eraser tool and draw a line across, draw a path across, Now you can form patterns like this, and in some instances this can be quite useful. I'll give an example. If you had another circle, oh, by the way, it remembers the previous shape we made. Okay, I'm just going to close it. Okay, and let's give it the color blue so we can see, and let's give this the color brown. Now if I move this into place, and I'll quickly go there to the position field. These are not layers. This is to raise an object higher or above the other. If I click on it and align them, notice how this can be such a cool tool to use. It forms beautiful effects like that. And something you can use in your design if you want to create some organic stuff, things that feel more, you know, less artificial and maybe, yeah, organic. And this can help to create irregular patterns and random shapes. It's quite similar to the hand drawing tool, but this is on a different way of application. And you can actually adjust the size of the eraser to create different forms. So if you want them a little thinner, you simply adjust the eraser tool size before you apply it on the object. So I find it quite useful. I find it good in lots of works I've done, and it's a very handy tool to have. And now before we move on, I just want to make sure I cover this thoroughly. So if I wanted to create a circle, I want to zoom in here a bit. Now if I drew a small circle like this, a tiny circle like this, okay, I'll select that, and with my modifying tool I'm going to pull and drag. Did you notice the difference in this circle and this one? Just want to move this away. The difference you would have noticed is that the path on the side of the edges of this, let me make it a bright color, maybe you can see it clearer. It's red at the moment. It's very thin, whereas this one is thick. Let me show you the difference. So if I colored it blue as well, like this one, and I made the path to be red, look how big it is, and compared with this one. So the reason why this happened is because in Inkscape, when you draw an object, the path and the object are two scalable entities. So when you scale them bigger, the algorithms are designed to calculate that these path lines should also be scaled up. So when I created this big circle, I created it big. So it took the default size of the path, which is like a line drawing, and created the shape. But when I created this one as a small circle, it took also the basic the default is the word I'm looking for, the default standard size of the path, and created it. But when I scaled it bigger, as it scaled the inside, it also began to scale the outline. So just want to show you that function so we keep it in mind, and in our future videos we're going to see how to maintain sizes with regards to path and how to adjust it if we want to reduce it back to a thin hairline. Okay, so that's pretty much about it. This the few things we want to discuss in these shapes. We don't want to make this particular video too long, and in the next one we are going to explore more on how we can draw with these tools and get even more creative. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.